Michael Carnevale is branch manager and financial advisor. Securities offered through Raymond James Financial Services Incorporated, 400 Southbridge Street in Auburn, Massachusetts, 1-800-657-9126. A member of FINRA SIPC and are not deposits, not insured by FDIC or any governmental agency, not guaranteed by Webster 5 Cent Savings Bank, and subject to risk, may lose value. Webster 5 Cent Savings Bank is not affiliated with Raymond James Financial Services Incorporated. The information contained in this report does not purport to be a complete description of the securities markets or developments referred to in the material. The information has been obtained from sources considered to be reliable, but we do not guarantee that the foregoing material is accurate or complete. Any information is not a complete summary or statement of all available data necessary for making an investment decision and does not constitute a recommendation. Any opinions are those of Michael Carnevale and not necessarily those of RJFS or Raymond James. Expressions of opinion are as of this date and are subject to change without notice.
All right. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Richard Morchoe, and this is Conversations with our advisor, Mike Carnevale of Raymond James. And as usual, we are going to see where we're headed and where we've been. Mike feels good right today because the last month, which is what we're reporting on, was up.
Big.
He said that with joy.
Best month since January 1976.
And that was a long time ago.
It was.
Yeah, 76.
Mm-hmm.
So, why so good? I mean, I know it's usual. October is usually an up month.
Yep.
And you have here the best time of year.
It is.
Sell in May, come back on Halloween Day. And if you
Correct.
came back on Halloween Day, this year you did good. You did well.
Yep.
So, what made it that? What happened?
Well, I think, 2022 is, hasn't been a great year, right? Dow gotten down to 28,000. Negativism was rampant. We saw that in these technical indicators for at least a couple of months. And, when something goes to an extreme, there's usually a bounce back. Everyone was saying, "Oh, recession! Oh, things are really bad." This is, I always like to say, "Hey, things are never as bad as you think they are, and they're never as good as you think they are." And I think that's really the basic thing. I mean, it had gotten so pessimistic and the technical indicators were so signaling a rebound. Didn't know when, but the longer it took, historically, the bigger the rebound. And it all happened in October with the Dow gaining 14% and the Dow over 32,500. That's like 3,000 to 4,000 below an all-time high. So, I mean, that's why you have to stay in. And that's why, at least I use those technical indicators as the guidance to say, okay, it's going down. Yep, the indicators kind of indicate it should be going down. So there's no shock. And that allows you to stay in, I think, long term to be able to reap in October.
Well, Mike, I've never seen you get over emotional since we've been doing this. So, par for the course.
It's never, emotions, you got to control the emotions, right? Number one, to be able to stay in the long term. And you're involved in something that you're going to be involved with until you're no longer breathing. So there's no it gets to a certain point, whoop, I cash out, that's it, I'm done. You're always going to be involved in some aspect of investing. I don't care if it's a CD or a stock or a bond. So I don't get excited when it's up big, although I like it, but I don't also get excited when it's down big either, because that's the cycle.
Well, this is, of course, last week I missed my my chance to have the most wonderful investment in the world, and
Yeah.
I didn't take the Powerball ticket.
I waited 1 week too long.
Yeah, so I mean, I blew that investment. So probably not panicking and staying in indexes and things like that, and responsible investment.
Correct.
If you're not going to, pay that $2 and get the what was it, 2 billion?
Yeah, 2 billion.
You have
yeah.
only yourself to blame.
Right.
So if you're going to do that, just stay with your normal course of investing.
Absolutely.
And of course, neither of us would have been here
No.
if we had taken it.
Absolutely not.
All right, technicals. Short-term sentiment weakened a bit. The 200-day New York Stock Exchange moving average now 16% versus 14% a month ago.
Still really low.
That doesn't seem like people going wild.
Nope, not yet.
Okay, so you are still oversold.
Yep.
The volatility index 26 versus 32 a month ago.
You would have thought that would have gone down a lot.
Yeah.
It did not. That's a good sign for that this could continue a little longer.
All right. The stochastic oscillator. All right. Why don't you get in things we can pronounce a little easier? Stochastic oscillator.
Yeah. It's actually written in English, so
Well, it was a band I played in,
Yes.
in high school.
yeah.
It priced in relation to its support over resistance level over a given time period.
Right. So that just, I mean,
Where's it going?
it's sort of like, where's it been in the short term, or could it go in the short term? That's really increased. You'd expect it with a big rally that we had, it would.
Yeah,
You know, it went-
it's up.
Yep, it was way undervalued a month ago, and it's sort of in fair value range right now. Still nothing that I would be worried about.
The other one, the next one, the fear and greed index.
And this is what we talked about at the beginning, right? Where there was so much pessimism in September, that was really low. This big rally that we had in October has brought in a little bit of greed. Nothing great, but still, again, something to watch. That if that were to keep going up, that could, put a stop to where we are right now.
Yeah, that could take let's dive.
Right,
Okay.
right.
All right. The IMF cut its global forecast and blamed, wicked shocker, Ukraine war, COVID. COVID hasn't been much in the news lately.
They're still blaming
Slowdown
it.
in China. The disappearance of Judge Crater.
That's true.
They were blaming everybody.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think the thing is, these are experts. Right? So,
Yeah.
I mean,
Trust the experts.
absolutely, oh, yes, definitely. The interesting thing I thought was, they didn't say that the U.S. was going to be in a recession next year.
1% growth is not wonderful.
Nope, but it's not a recession.
Yeah. Well, do you think they reasoned that out, or did they take a dart?
Well, the first and second quarter this year, we had negative growth. The third quarter was positive growth. So, of course, then I mean, those are the numbers that people use, right? Now you can get into an argument of, well, yeah, but they're not real numbers, but you got to match it to some. There's got to be some benchmark that you compare this stuff to. So then comes, I mean, that's just the unemotional point of it. But then that's followed up by the emotional, things are really bad. Well, what's really bad? I mean, what would be really bad? If I went out this afternoon and my car wouldn't start. Because then I'd probably have to walk home. That would be really bad.
And it's a long walk.
It's a long walk. But it's a straight line because I would just walk down Route 20.
Well, you know, you can always ask us for a ride. We may not say yes, but you can always ask us. And in fact, we'd be hurt if you didn't ask us.
You'd send me west instead of I need to go east.
Gosh, you're so
Oh, I said, oh, and you would say, oh, well, I thought you said you wanted a ride. We're giving you a ride.
You know, sharper than a serpent's tongue, an ungrateful child.
No.
I'm telling you, I have shown this man nothing but kindness. Anytime. Oh, I wish I could help you. Anyway. So, okay.
Only when the camera is rolling.
All right. So the interest rate world
Keeps going up.
everybody is, but this is an expression of fear that they
Yep.
won't get a handle on inflation.
Correct.
Okay. We're still raising.
Yep.
And you want to say when they'll stop and when you think they should stop?
Well, you know, the next opportunity would be December 14th, and they meet again. And the indication is they're going to raise it again. You know, as we know, they've been raising them 0.75% as they go. Now it's maybe 0.5% to 0.75%. So, you know, the Fed had their meeting where they raised rates.
They were pretty talkative.
Right. And they didn't, you know, a lot of people were hoping they'd say something like, hey, we're getting close to the end. And the Federal Reserve Chairman actually said the exact opposite. No, we're going to keep raising rates until we're convinced inflation is, you know, been broken. And, you know, then the question is, well, you know, do they raise them too much? Because, you know, if you're raising rates today, it takes a while for it to be felt. So I guess the only thing is you could say is you're probably closer to the end than the beginning because you've already had, what, 4 or 5 rate hikes?
Yeah. All right, then amateur hour here.
Yep.
But I make an observation because, you know, my memory isn't what it was, but I remember Volcker and ratcheting up at basically one fell swoop.
Mm-hmm.
And he's considered a saint,
Right.
a sage genius. And he did it. Why only 3/4 at a time? Wouldn't it be better to say, because it's not, I don't think it's as extreme a situation as what Volcker did.
Right.
But why not 5 points?
Instead of 3/4?
Yeah.
I think they look at, and who knows what they really, we only know what we hear, right? Which means we don't know anything. But that's besides the point. I think it's a couple of things. Oh, I think it's a couple of things. I guess it's a couple of things. The jobless claims and the unemployment. They're not really getting worse. So if you went with a lesser rate hike, it's likely could have an even lesser effect on those two indicators. And as crazy as it sounds, what you want is more people losing their jobs and less people finding work to reduce spending.
What a great country.
To reduce spending, which will obviously bring down prices. That's why I think they keep doing the 3/4 because, you know, they've done it like 4+ times, maybe 5 times. I'm losing track.
We are.
And it has had little effect. So I think that's why they keep doing the big rate hikes, is because without it, it could really get much worse.
All right, we're going to have you put on your guru hat
Okay.
and say, and we'll ask you a question as if you were a Powell or a Volcker, throwing people out of work, even though you get less inflation. And I'd like to see less inflation. How good is that for our country?
Well, I think it's not good for the individual, But it is good for the country long term, because otherwise the alternative would be ever increasing prices to a point where, I mean, history shows that, and then the other thing the Fed keeps watching is wage growth. History shows that as people make more, they become less price sensitive.
Yeah.
So if you don't try to, and on their own, people will not restrict spending.
Yeah.
And so you have to force them to. And
Now,
a way of forcing it.
now,
Yeah.
do you think Chairman Powell, instead of buying the expensive Burgundy or Bordeaux and getting the best cut of steak, do you think he will just tell the wife, I don't know if he's married, I don't know if the wife does the cooking or he does the cooking, this, dear, we have to cut it, tighten our belt and have chili this week.
No. Because
No.
they're at a certain income level that it doesn't
A
affect
certain
them.
income level.
Right.
Which is, they can be cavalier about this.
Well, they're looking more at a big picture as opposed to maybe the personal. No one likes to see somebody lose their job.
Wait a minute, you just went on that they love this.
Oh, nobody,
We don't
no
take,
individual.
We don't take pleasure in the torture. We just enact it.
Right. It's a necessary evil to keep, I mean, because otherwise then there would be, you need fear in your life, right? So there's got to be, without
wait a minute,
fear,
wait a minute.
without any
Wait a
fear,
minute. The Carnevale School of Philosophy.
it's not
Here,
my area.
What?
But
you just said it. You need.
do
fear.
need- you do
You're
need
not saying
some-
we need fear.
No.
Did you? Ladies
You
and
do
gentlemen,
need some type of fear, because without it,
you live intelligently.
you'd go to an extreme.
Who goes to an extreme?
Well, people in general.
What would they buy that? Instead of an F-150, they would buy one
The
up,
next,
two up.
the next one up, the next one up. Because there would be no fear that it could ever go down.
So you're basically saying humanity is stupid.
I
You didn't say that,
didn't
folks.
say. I would say individuals know what they should do. Not many of them do that. And we know that. Even people we know in our personal lives, right? They shouldn't be, that doesn't make sense. People do stuff they shouldn't do, that they should know. And if they can't control it themselves, then
Then
a
power-
bigger entity will
then
control
power
it
will
for
do.
them. Right. Right.
And you know what? This is not Mike Carnevale is not saying this. I mean, he's saying it, but he's basically saying what is the policy of a Holy Mother State.
Right.
And you just made say like we reached 1 billion people in this planet.
Mm-hmm.
You just made 900 million communists.
You know what? I mean, everybody knows what they should be doing. And if they did, if you did,
Is it wrong to get one up from the F-150 truck? Is that evil? Is it truly improvident? Or is it the government's money policy that is the improvident aspect of life?
I think it probably, I think it starts with the individual person.
So, really,
Yeah.
now,
And then,
do you think if we had a currency that didn't need this shot in the arm, say we really kept the currency at a stable level, would people still, would what people are doing, would you still call the wrong thing?
yeah, it could be. I mean, I mean, you don't know. But I don't think we'd ever get there.
Is that the fault of the Fed, or is it the fault of the voter, or what is it the fault?
Well, I mean, everybody wants to blame everyone else. Really,
Somebody eventually's got to get some blame here. The truth is, somebody fumbled the ball somewhere.
Yep, but there was something before the fumble.
And what was that?
Oh, every individual behaviors. Individual behaviors, really.
Well, so individual behaviors would still be bad individual behaviors, even in an absolutely stable
Yeah, I think so.
Can you tell me one of the bad individual behaviors you did? I mean, I can't because I live a perfect, blameless life.
Oh, no, we all have. We've all done stuff, either overextended in this area or that, or whatever.
Some of us lift things and have a back sprain.
That's
I know
true.
2 people in this room
Yep.
at least.
Yeah, and it required outside corrective measures to bring that back into balance.
So I think
On its own, it would not. On its own, it would have gotten worse and worse. So there was an outside entity that set up. We're gonna.
so. You're now saying we caused bad currency that needed the Fed to come back and get us.
Well, yeah, I think it would. I mean, we are the.
I would love to have some influence over the Fed.
I mean, I'm not saying us individually, but
Yeah, I get together with everybody and I say usually, what are we going to do to make the Fed really screw up?
Oh no, they don't do it. I don't think they do that. They do it, on a very personal.
Okay. I'm buying a higher end truck this week.
And more people do that. That raises the price of the higher end because it increases the demand for the higher end, and then the higher end goes up again. Price goes up again.
Supply and demand being was, if we all spend on trucks, then we won't spend on less. I mean, it's a supply and demand thing. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not exactly necessarily a monetary inflation.
Right. Yeah.
This is tough, folks. We're really getting in the weeds.
I might have
here.
walked into the wrong room here. I don't know.
You're doing great.
I think next month I'm going to go right instead of left in the hallway.
He doesn't love us. All right.
But no, I think it's, I mean,
All right, let's get to science here.
the most important
All right.
yes, aspect.
For the predictions, the true way to predict things is to really get to the science.
Yes.
All right, tell us about the World Series and what that did for the market.
Well, I would say this. I would say society would be better off if they read the sports pages more than they read the business pages. And we see this again bear out. We had this big rally in October. And, if you turned on any of the business shows, right, everybody had a different reason why this happened.
Yep.
Is it quite possible? There's a power bigger than us. Is it quite possible that the controller of the market knew the Astros were going to win the World Series against Philadelphia? Because in the years where Houston wins a World Series and Philadelphia loses a World Series, the following year the market has dropped on average 1%. When the opposite happens, and I can't take credit for this because there was an article in CNBC did an article how bad it would be for the market if the Phillies won the World Series. But had the Phillies won the World Series and Houston lost, on average the market the following year was down 10%. And some of the worst years were when years following a Philadelphia World Series win. There was an article on this in the CNBC reported on. I think it was in the maybe it was the Wall Street Journal article, but there was some article that made a lot of headlines that said, you don't want to see Philadelphia win. Yeah, sure, it seems to have turned out because the market's done well ever since.
So You always want to follow the science.
Definitely.
You
Yeah.
don't want to get into those dicey statistics about markets and the Fed and everything. Follow the science.
I put the science in the same category that some people put, oh, I don't like the president. It's the same. I mean, president has nothing to do with it, doesn't vote for anything, can't do anything on his own. You don't like him. Okay, but he can't do you any harm. It's the Congress that could
No.
potentially do harm.
I'm not going to judge you or say anything, but we're talking now the possibility of nuclear war. Could the president do us some harm?
I suppose, if all the safeguards failed. But, again, that's an extreme case, I think.
It is.
And
it
people,
is.
in talking with people don't, my opinion, people don't realize how extreme some of their ideas are. And it's because, I won't say who I blame because we're part of that group. But I blame the M group. Because now you can selectively hear what only you want to hear.
M group?
The media.
Media. Oh, yeah.
So
Well, you can get anything across the media.
you can get, if you want if you believe in one idea, you can have all your news funnel to that one idea. And any one idea can be an extreme,
Certainly. I still wish I'd won Powerball, but you got to buy a ticket, and that kind of is a downer. All right, let's get to inflation.
Continues to be mixed. The total inflation number, which is kind of what, the business shows talk about, has been dropping slightly. You'd think that's good, but the Fed really looks at the core inflation, which takes away the more volatile items like food and energy. Of course, then people say, well, that's kind of stupid. Food and energy is but Fed policy is the Fed only can control long-term policy. So in order to make long-term policy, they have to take out the stuff that can change in price very rapidly. And we see that, you don't necessarily see it in food, but you do see it in gas prices, right? One week they're up big, then they're down
immediately
big.
see it, yeah.
Right. And so that's why the Fed subtracts those items. And so the core is still going up, even though total inflation is going down. So that's sort of mixed results.
Well, people won't say that because they still see the gas as high. It's come down a little
Right.
bit, yeah.
Right.
So that the average Joe,
Correct.
and one of my middle names is Joe. So the leading economic indicators.
So, yeah, those are 10 components that
Yeah.
give you a snapshot of the economy. Stock market's one of them, but jobless claims, building permits, stuff like big ticket purchases. They're all part of this. Was negative again in the latest report, and I believe that's like the 6th straight negative reading. Historically, it takes 3 straight negative readings to be in a recession. So we factor all this in, right? That's why the Fed keeps raising rates. It's not getting any better, but it's not getting any worse, but it's also not getting better.
Jobless claims.
That's another thing that's not getting any worse. And
That's a problem.
that's a problem. Usually you need 250,000 plus layoffs per week to begin hurting the economy. We've been well below that. After all these rate increases, we're still well below that. That's why the Fed, I think, is keep hammering, rates are going up, we're going to keep raising them because it hasn't slowed down inflation yet, it hasn't slowed down job creation, and it hasn't slowed down the job destruction.
And the employment report is equally as horrible.
You normally need, in order to grow the economy historically, they say you need 150,000 new jobs. per month. Last month we had 263.
That's terrible.
It's terrible if you're trying to bring down inflation.
Inflation, right.
Yeah.
Well, historically, the Fed is supposed to be the two jobs, inflation and employment.
Right.
And they seem to be a little contradictory.
Yeah.
So it's a mystery, and we'll leave that mystery till next month, or the month after, depending.
Or the
Thank-
month after that.
Or the month after that. Mike, thank you very much.
Thank you.
It was a struggle.
No, I'm still smiling.
That's the important thing.